This week, our production team is a little busy. So, we're continuing our series on things I wish I'd known about PvP while doing very little work. And we have a look at the origin of one of our dear friends who helps us out from time to time. For eViscFast, I'm Marvin Gankhouse. But first, an important message. Code 418. Code 418. One of our subscribers is missing. He's an avid consumer of our show and regularly helps us out with views and helpful comments. This kind-hearted and hunky man, pictured here in his female form, has not been heard of for a week, and we partially suspect interbus of foul play. Wink, buddy, if you're out there watching this, we miss you. Please make contact immediately, if not sooner. This week we got a letter from little Fubsy Absquatulate of Mrs. McCabbage's 4th grade class in Bashakru Mobit. He asks, who is that curly-haired fellow who wouldn't stop snoring on your show last week? How did he come to be on the show, and what is next for him? Well, Fubsy, that particular person is Isaac David Gerard Newton. He, like myself, was a consultant for a somewhat known and underappreciated show called Gank Marvin's Guide to Being Horrible, where he would give advice and be found wrong on many subjects, including physics. Gank Marvin, who is very easy to confuse with me, ran his show for what people on Earth would call almost 6 months. He is definitely not me, even though he does sound very like me, and he has a sassy orange head stripe. While Mr. Newton was in front of the camera and had speaking parts on the show, I was behind in the editorial department. Isaac David Gerard Newton first appeared on the show in of what people on Earth would call 2021. Because of this wholly non-fictional question, and because it fits in nicely with our most recent theme of things I wish I'd known about PvP, we have decided to air Mr. Newton's first appearance in full. We will in time explain how we came to be in possession of this and other episodes, but for now, please enjoy this episode of Gank Marvin's Guide to Being Horrible, featuring our recently very own Isaac David Gerard Newton. Let's watch. We don't always have to kill everyone we see just because we can. Unless we do.
You just got old. Yeah, old. Yeah, old.
Hello friends. Last week we looked at some rudimentary fitting and the simple equation of DPS versus tank. We also paid a visit to my cousin. Ha! Nothing, get back to work. This week we'll focus on other complications that may be introduced into the dynamic. High slots are where most of your damage comes from, but mid slots are where you can mount most of your combat utility modules. If your main tank is shields, then your mids are often taken up with tanking modules, but armor fits leave them more open. Everyone needs a warp scrambler or disruptor, we all know this, and if your target can get outside the range of it, they can warp away. So scram range needs to be controlled, and there are a few ways to do this. Something I've been thinking about recently, propulsion mechanics in EVE break and or bend, hey, who's that over there? Oh man, this guy, he never stops complaining. Well, might as well go to the horse's mouth, I suppose. Here, come here, I want to talk to you. Folks, please welcome to the stage the English mathematician, physicist, astronomer, theologian and author, described in his time as a natural philosopher who is widely recognised as one of the greatest mathematicians and most influential scientists of all time, and as a key figure in the scientific revolution, and also a massive drag. Inventor of Isaac Newton's laws of motion, put your hands together for Isaac Newton! Hello Mr. Newton, how are you?
Well, I'm a bit upset actually.
Shocker. What's bothering you today?
Well, my Wikipedia page says I'm from Lincolnshire, but really, I'm from Wolverhampton.
That's fascinating. Now it's actually an opportune moment that you've come to see us because I have a question about EVE Online.
Oh yes, EVE Online. Best virtual universe in the history of gaming would appear to break me first law of motion.
And what is the first Isaac Newton's law of motion, Isaac Newton?
An object in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon by a net external force. Mathematically, this is equivalent to saying that if the net force on an object is zero, then the velocity of the object is constant.
If I'm reading you right, Isaac Newton, I think you're saying that when someone disables a prop mod, their speed should remain more or less the same due to the inertia gained and lack of an outside force to affect it, notwithstanding some tiny particles of space dust that might be around whose effect would be minimal. Does that sound about right to you?
Yes.
But look, disabling a micro warp drive shows an almost instantaneous drop in velocity. And regarding your second law of motion, what was that again?
The second law states that the rate of change of momentum of a body over time is directly proportional to the force applied and occurs in the same direction as the applied force.
And I fitted a 100 meganewton, get it, afterburner to a ship recently and was disappointed with the rate of acceleration. So as our ships are in a vacuum and the lightspeed barrier has been broken, then given enough time it could theoretically be accelerated to infinite velocity, and therefore the prop mod should affect acceleration, not top speed. So sorry, Isaac, you were dead wrong. Wah, wah. We're all doing stuff that violates your laws. Tell you what, go take a shower and wash the shame off yourself. Then fit up a nice Punisher or something and we'll see you on the battlefield.
Well, I'm champing mad now.
There's a good man. Well, at least that was mercifully brief. Now getting back to scram range, you can speed yourself up or slow your opponent down. If you're in combat, there's a high chance you're being scrammed yourself, and if you have a micro warp drive, it's been shut down. You can fit an afterburner, but they're so power hungry, not many people do. And if you only have a 10 meganewton example on a cruiser, then it's going to be quite a slow boat. So assuming that we're all going with a single navy scram now, you fit a web. Stasis webifiers reduce the target speed by 60%, so they're a lot of fun and they stack too. But they're nice to have. Don't fit one at the expense of a scram. Scram is king. That said, webs are a very powerful addition to a ship's fit. And if it's a big slow ship and you're trying to pop a frigate, might as well make that frigate slow as well. Get yourself a nice web. I'm going to. Target painters are simple. They increase the signature radius of your target. So that means your target is easier to track and to hit, and it takes more damage. They're also fairly capacitor thirsty. But if you're a big thing with big armaments and you want to shoot small things, you need a target painter. And they can be used for increasing damage too. I have covered target breaking, EWAR, ECM, that kind of thing before. The quick way to look at this is if you want to mess up your opponent's target lock, you can try drones. They're pretty weak, but with a full flight of 5 of them, you might have some chance. Or you can pump skills into jamming modules, but if you ask me, the racial ones are a waste of time. Go with multi-spectrum jammers because you never know who you're going to be fighting. And with all that, you only ever have a chance to break lock. I maxed my skills in resisting target breaking after the last smartass got away with half his hull and robbed me of a kill. I've been messing around with stasis web drones recently. I think they worked, but I haven't really given them a good test yet. They reduced the target speed by 5% per successful drone. Something that's like ECM but not as much fun or convenience is weapon disruption. It comes in 2 types, guidance and tracking disruption. You see, missiles with their lack of need for turret guidance work differently to lasers, projectiles and hybrids, so you have to jam them differently. That's probably why you never see them on PvP fits. You need to know who you're going up against before making a decision between the two. They both affect range fairly equally, and they each have a host of other attributes that are augmentable with scripts. If you want to do PvP though, don't bother with weapon disruptors unless you're getting into some really high level, well planned out stuff. They have no place in the fit of an opportunistic PvP solo. Again, with enough skills there may be a use for them. If you're in a fleet and you know you consistently will have that fleet around you, then a dedicated ECM or weapon disruptor ship could be incredibly lethal against a single opponent. If you're fighting a group, well then the electricity can only be used against as many ships as you have in range and as you have modules to use. If your fleet commander is really on the ball, this could all be coordinated to great success. But without getting into all that boring large fleet stuff, you're more likely to find yourself out there having fun with a small group of friends or by yourself. DPS, tank and scram is what you destroy ships with most. Those should always come first. Now, if your damage is done with drones, and in much of solo PvP it is, the handy Astero is the closest thing in the game to a do-it-all ship. And if you're looking to start PvP, just get an Astero. But if you're moving up to a bigger drone boat, you'll have some high slots free. And here we get into one of the most fun things in the game. Energy neutralization. We all have reactors in our ships, and those reactors store power in our capacitors, which in turn power everything on our ship. So what better place to hit someone? It absolutely cripples many of our ships, those being more cap dependent than others, and you can bet it makes life very difficult for active tank, shield boosters and armor wrappers. My new Stratios has 3 high slots in which to fit Newts. Only problem is, as they drain power from your target in large amounts, they also require a lot of power to use. So fitting 3 and using them was going to be very tricky. I elected to fit 2 Newts and 1 Nosferatu. The Nosferatu is the cousin of the regular Newt and can steal power from your opponent and add it to your capacitor. It even updates in your fitting window to calculate your overall capacitor recharge rate. So why don't we just use those? Friends, that is a very good question and I'm glad you asked it. They only work when your target has more capacitor than you do. So in practice, mine never did anything because my Newts were already doing such a good job. But the thinking was that if I got into a fight with a strat fitted with all Newts, then depending on where the weapon cycles fell, I'd be leeching power from my opponent every time he or she neuted me further than I had her or him. It never came up in all the fights I got, but because of that theory and the difficulty in fitting 3 Newts, I'd probably go that route again. Now, energy Newts work on gigajoules per second drained, and Nosferatu's work on points. I'm sure there are people who know the difference and how that all stacks up, but I am not one of those people. I don't care, just fit them and use them. If you don't have weapons in your free high slots, there aren't many other useful things you can put in them anyway. So enjoy neuting. I would say the hierarchy of combat utility modules goes like this. Scram number 1. Then web. Neutralization, but of course this is a high slot thing and it won't take from your mids, so there's really no need for it to compete in this chart. Then ECM, then target painting, then weapon disruption. Maybe target painter's over ECM, I don't know. Okay, so let's go over my awesome new Stratios fit. Core probe launcher, you need that. Covert ops cloaking device too, obviously. Now, energy Newts, we just went over those. And the little Nosferatu, the Corpum B is pretty cheap. And you can see here how it updates the capacitor drain amount and the time to depletion. Sensor booster, that's for keeping the scan res up. And this gets a script. Scan res of 745 is not bad. Large cap battery, that is good for power, and it also resists energy neutralizer effects. There's the aforementioned web. I'm going to make some use of that. 10 meganewton afterburner, it could be better, but every time I try and put something bigger in there, it just doesn't work. Navy warp scrambler, that's pretty much a requirement now. Drone damage amp, same. Don't leave home without a damage control. I went for a Dead Space armor rep, because I do. Reinforced bulkheads are hull tank, and they brought my EHP up the best. Same goes for this rig. And with 2 targeting system subcontrollers there, if we just turn them off, we drop considerably in scan res. Overall EHP 24k. If I wasn't bothered with the scan res, then I could get a lot more tanky if I wanted. Optional multispectral ECM. It seems to drain the cap a lot more than the web does. So now let's have a look at some of the fun stuff I did in the cool new Stratios. I wanted to find out if my scan res was high enough to catch little frigates, and this very, very nice guy provided me with the opportunity. Yeah, this couldn't be going better. And there we go, just like that, it's over. Absolutely no point in the Nosferatu here. Up, there we go. It would be rude not to give him a fast trip home now, in fairness, wouldn't it? I accidentally used medium drones for that, that's why it took so long. Now, I have never killed a mining barge before, and in a Sterile you'd be wasting your time. But now that I've got a big cool Stratios, let's let her rip. No possible way he was escaping. But I am a little bit worried about his tank and his defenses. Seems to be going okay anyway. I think he's probably an armor tank. His shields are going pretty quick. The Newts are doing their job. Give me all them gigajoules. Okay, and we're into armor before him. Hopefully the Dead Space armor rep can tank it. And it's doing a good job. I was wondering if he'd have an active tank. It doesn't look like it, but he's webbing me now. Time to get my afterburner on. I'm pretty sure he's fairly slow, so I'll be able to keep up with him. He's trying to get home to this starbase, but it's over 100 kilometers away. Yeah, it's just going to take a long time here now, so might as well fast forward. Running low on cap, so I was a Nosferatu going, but I have him drained lower than me, so it's not going to work. The most exciting thing about this was every minute or two I heard one of my drones exploding. I had a lot of drones though. There we go. Might as well try for the capsule too. Oh, that was a fancy explosion. Now a lot went on in this wormhole. There were miners and it looked like people were trying to gank them, and then they seemed to team up, and then one of them came back in a battleship and was running a combat site, and then he went away and showed up in this salvage fit Algos, and I decided I'd have that. I don't know if they knew I was in the wormhole, but I was in there for a long time watching everything. And when the moment was right, when I thought I could win the fight, I struck. Here's his buddy in an Astero. I'll have that too. we've seen the time it happened to me, a Stratios can newt out an Astero in short order. So he can forget about his armor rep working. Oh, isn't that great? And got his capsule too. No biggie.
Warp drive active.
Now in this wormhole I see a cheetah, and as I get a bit closer I know he's baiting. He's not touching the cans. But man, I'm Gank Marvin. I can kill whatever shows up. Looks like he's trying to move, but no, we're okay. And he's scramming me. This is definitely a trap. And that's what I get for grouping my drones. I left the mic on by mistake for this. So his buddy shows up in a stiletto and I'm like, okay, cool, I'll kill that as well. Cool, who's next? Ooh, now this could be a problem. Right, the Vedmak kills fast, doesn't it? I've never been fired on by an entropic disintegrator before. Halfway through the armor. Right, this is starting to look properly bad. And here's my mistake. I switched attack to the Vedmak. If I had kept on the stiletto, maybe I might have broken the scram and got out of there. Everything's overloaded now, I know I'm going down. 10 kill marks I had on this thing before this fight. Would have been 11 with the cheetah. I just can't get in close enough so that my newts work properly. Rep is doing a fantastic job. I haven't completely lost hope. Drones are taking lumps out of the Vedmak, but it's all over unfortunately. There we go. That's my butt. So, if you ever wanted to learn how to lose an expensive Stratios, then that was a pretty good way to do it. And as it is customary to improve on one's design after such a calamity, I am now off to a trade hub to look up the contracts for fancy pants abyssal modules. Was I perturbed? Yes, most perturbed indeed. There were many perturbations. But I was, as always, obeying the first rule of Eve, and disregarding the safety of my nice ship in the pursuit of getting content for all our lovely subscribers. A demographic which surely encompasses everyone watching this video right now, right? Right? Well, now you've seen Mr. David Gerard Newton in his embryonic stage, and that sure was a helpful and informative video from Mr. Marvin too. The shifting sands of time of supersedence of New Eden have rendered some of the cool knowledge obsolete. For example, wily noobs can't put 6 warp core stabilizers on their ships anymore, so Navy scramblers are no less desirable but are less necessary. Still, most of it rings true. Well, that's all the time we have this week. We'll see you again soon. From all of us at eFisk Fast, take care. Good night.